my soul, been walking to a city I cannot see. Fill my cup, Lord, run it over. Give me love, give me joy, give me peace. Fill my cup, Lord, run it over. I am your child in need, but I need to fill my cup. Walking over life, standing in my way.
What's up, guys? This is Tyson again, and welcome to the podcast we like to call The Last Interview. The series is a tribute to highlight senior firefighters who pour their hearts and souls into serving the Big Island community and look to retire soon. Before they head out, we'll dive into their lives, stories throughout the department, and listen to what advice they have for the next generation of firefighters. As these veterans retire, they take a lifetime of experiences, stories, and expertise. Join us as we get to talk to some of these remarkable men and women before they hang up that helmet for good. So today we're honored to have Captain Kelly Minami. 25 years in the Hawaii Fire Department. He is a captain in Station 5 A shift. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so we'll talk about first thing. Let's get into it. Let's get to know you, where you're born and raised, your high school sports, and up until you got into fire.
So born and raised in Hilo, went to Waikea High School. Was more of a nerd than athletic or a jock. So I did things like band, stuff like that. Played recreational sports on the side, but nothing organized. Then got into the department in 2000. Yeah.
What class was that?
That was the 25th.
Oh, so it's same as Captain Hoffinger.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, a bunch of us are going at the same time. Yeah.
So what inspired you to become a firefighter?
So like most of us, we're people that can't just sit around and just do 9 to 5 office type work. So that was the appeal, something different. Your day, you never know what's going to happen, and that the excitement of that was always an appeal to me. Funny part about that, being that I'm so tall, is that previously there used to be a height requirement to get in, and you have to be 5'7" in order to get into department. Yeah, it's actually one of the minimum requirements, and I didn't know that law changed, so that prevented me from trying to get in sooner. So yeah.
Okay. Can you share a brief overview of your career at HFD, where you went, where you truly throughout your entire life?
So started my career out in Honoka. Was there for about 3 years. That was a really good place to start your career. Wasn't very busy. By today's standards, it'd be unheard of that we actually went months without calls. But I had a good captain that made sure that we knew what to do. We trained a lot. We practiced a lot of things. Back then, wildland firefighting was really what we did all the time. That and EMS, of course. Very few rubbish EMS calls, so most of it was legit things. There's a lot of times when you have to convince people to go, versus today we're trying to convince them not to go. Yeah. From there, I went out to Ocean View. Ocean View wasn't there yet. Went out to Pahala for about a year, and then came back here. And so, majority of my career I've been in KL. Got promoted to driver. Went out to Ocean View for I think it was like 3 months, then came right back to KL again. Got promoted to captain, went to Central for about a month, and came right back here. So
It's meant to be.
yeah, so I've been in this district, I'd say my entire career. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, memorable experiences. Can you recount one of the most challenging calls you faced on the job? How did you do, and what did you learn from it?
So I saw your questioning, and I actually watched Jimmy's, interview, because honestly, unless somebody brings it up, you don't really remember
Exactly.
the calls, right? Everything is a blur over your career, and there's so many things that kind of overlap that, you kind of get some facts mixed up between calls. So in my career, there wasn't really anything that stands out. It was just something we did. The only memorable one I had was on the old Hamakua Banana Bridge. There was a Jeep that flipped over the bridge and landed at the bottom, and it was like about a 250-foot drop. And that was pretty crazy. But nothing much other than that. Most of it I couldn't really recall. Yeah.
There's a lot of action calls that we just don't talk about.
Yeah, or you just don't remember it. I mean, it's one of those things that we can say it's a blessing and a curse, so to say. It's a blessing that we don't relive those incidences over and over.
Yeah.
But so we kind of have short-term memory. But we take what we can from it, and then we just kind of leave it where it is. So yeah.
Good point. Throughout your career, what important lessons have you learned that help you through the fire service as well as life?
That's an interesting question, in that habits that you form in a department translate to your personal life, but it's not necessarily for the good. We compartmentalize a lot of things, and we take the emotions out of it because there's a job to do. But in your personal life, where your family expects you to be somewhat emotional about something, you become kind of emotionally dead to some things. And most of the things that I learned is from the old generation captains and senior firefighters that taught me things along the way: how to think, how to view the job, how to handle the stresses of the job. I think those are the things that helped me along my career, but not necessarily in the home life, which is a sad thing. Yeah.
So my wife too. I have no feelings.
Yeah. Right.
How has the profession of firefighting changed throughout your career?
So I keep saying that my class was the last of the old school, where who you knew kind of got you hired. And there were people that I worked with that literally had 2 weeks of recruit training and got thrown on the line. So we worked with a lot of people that truly wasn't trained up to par. The education level and the intelligence level of the people that have been hired since we came on has drastically improved. So we're getting a lot of smart people, not necessarily worldly experienced people, which is kind of the big change right now. So back when we came on, you kind of needed to have a balance of education as well as practical or common sense type of knowledge. Today we have a lot of book smart people with very little common sense or very little world experience, which definitely changes the dynamics of how we go about doing the job.
So for everyone that doesn't know, I guess we've changed. I think 1 year before I got in, there's a prereqs that you got to do, which is your English 100, Health 125, and you got to submit that. So because of that, we're getting a little bit younger group. Younger guys are going to fire science, and we're getting less of the guys that are older, have experience, but don't have those requirements. Yeah.
So I guess to give a background on that, when I applied to get in, applicants was well over 1,000 applicants.
Yeah.
Today, what we're getting, 200-300.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're taking a lot of the blue collar workers who cannot go to these classes. And the hard part is a lot of these classes, especially that science class that they need to take, that's also a prerequisite for nursing and a lot of other programs. So the demand is high for those classes, and these blue collar workers cannot get in. So it eliminates them from the pool of applicants, which I think has a big impact.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone just starting their career in firefighting?
So, because I was at this station for a majority of my career, this is like Central and the town stations. they become sort of training stations, so to say. So the turnovers tend to be higher. And along the way, you work with a lot of new firefighters. And I find that one of the things that I keep telling guys is the hardest part of our job is we have to think. And surprisingly, that's a very hard thing to do, especially when I've noticed that the education system tends to teach students how to memorize answers instead of critically think. So when they come on the job, a lot of times they have the book knowledge, but they don't understand how to apply that knowledge to any given situation. Yeah. And as you know, we go to scenes, we go to calls where we may know nothing about what we're walking into. And we have to then understand what's our objective and then how do we go about and accomplish that. So you truly have to understand what you're trying to do, how to do it safely, and then how to avoid any type of hazards that might present itself. And because there's no way you're going to train for everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's what makes it extremely hard and difficult job. So yeah, I emphasize a lot of that when we train, and it's not an easy concept when throughout their life they haven't been taught to think that way.
That's good advice. What type of, or do you recommend any specific training or preparation that you found particularly valuable throughout your career?
I like to think that I'm more of a hands-on type of person. I enjoy the actual physical training versus target solutions or just reading it in a book. Yes, there's some benefit and knowledge that you get out of that, but I think it sticks better with me when you actually do the hands-on.
Exactly.
I think the program that Chief Springer is putting together is in the right direction. You know, not to say that anything that was done prior to him wasn't good, but I think he has a more comprehensive plan on how to implement that and a program of how to progress from there. So I really think that it's going to benefit the department.
How has being a firefighter impacted your personal life and worldview?
This may be kind of negative, but when I first came into the department, I remember the old timers would say, you know what the problem is today? More stupid people are living longer, reproducing, and generating more and more stupid people. And at the time I thought, that's pretty pessimistic view of the world. But since then, I think they were right. We're seeing a lot more people that don't think, do crazy things. We laugh and say, you know, job security, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, people are doing some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, it's evolved
Yeah.
since before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share a moment and or memory where you felt really proud to be a firefighter?
Again, it's so one of the things and I'm sure you feel the same way as well. I don't like the stigma like people call us heroes. I don't feel like a hero. I don't think of myself as a hero. I think of myself just as important as a janitor that cleans the toilets and you have a nice place to go to, you know, when you go to the bathroom. So we try to do our job well, and that's the whole point in it, right? It's just being competent, do our job, and you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I know what you feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience an incident where it got dangerous that you do remember and you were put into a situation that made you uncomfortable?
Again, everything's a blur. I don't really remember. I remember there were incidences, and we all come across those that we don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we try to impress upon the new guys, is that you will run across a call where you're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to want to do that job. You're not going to want to rappel down that rope, you know, or whatever it is, right, that you're doing. But there's a job to do, and that's what we get paid to do.
Yeah.
So I did some coaching with my younger son, and one of the things I learned from other coaches was that whenever it's time to perform, you're gonna perform at the level you trained at, right?
Exactly. In your opinion, what is the most misunderstood aspect about being a firefighter?
Again, going back to they think we're heroes.
Yeah.
That's the most misunderstood thing is that it's a job, right?
What do you believe is the future of firefighting?
I think it's already showing itself that majority of our calls are EMS based, medical based. Firefighting, I think, looking at the new building codes that is being enacted, I think it's going to become a lot more hazardous for us out there. We're going to have to be more situational awareness, what we're walking into, especially with the new installations and whatnot. Right? What are we building? We're building bombs basically that we're going to see a lot more flashovers.
Fire burns way hotter now too.
Yeah, with the fuels and everything. So it's going to get a lot more dangerous, and things are going to happen a lot faster, as we see with the modern fuels and whatnot that's in the homes. So it's going to require the firefighters to be a lot better trained, a lot more confident in their skills and their abilities. So yeah, that's definitely the progression that we're going to.
That's a good answer, yeah. If you could go back in time, would you change anything in your career, and why?
I think so far as that is just like life, right? We get one shot at it. There's things that, maybe would have been better, maybe would have been easier, but would you be the person you are today if you did that?
Yes, exactly.
So, no, I mean, it was what it was. I think I was fortunate throughout my career. I had very good officers that taught me a lot of things, a lot of valuable things that kept us safe, taught you how to handle things, taught you to have good skills. And as long as you're willing to listen and put that work in to do it, there wasn't a shortage of good information out there.
I guess it's the same question. If you could go change your career path, where would you go and why? If there's anything else you would have done other than firefighting, I guess.
No. I mean, I was one of those that had another career before this. I was a grocery manager. That sucked. This job has been a blessing, and it's. I don't think there's anything I would change.
Yeah.
I did a little bit TA into the battalion chief position, and not the career path that I wanted to take. I enjoyed the day in day out. We're not sure what to expect. I actually enjoy that aspect of it. So, again, I could have taken the captain's test earlier, put in more work to do that. But again, who knows? It might have been worse. It might
Everything's for a reason, right?
Exactly.
So as you transition into retirement, what are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the next chapter in life. So, meaning that my kids have graduated from college, they're on their own, they're looking to start their own families. So we got that whole empty nest syndrome thing going. I think my health is still good, so I can do things without worrying about that aspect of it. So actually, I think it's just time to. There's a change we talked about earlier in the fire service and the progression and where it's going. I just think I'm at that point where it's like, okay, it was a good career. I learned a lot. It provided a lot for me and my family, and now it's time to make way for the next generation.
I guess, are you a traveler? What do you like to do on your days off?
So, I got to go to Japan for the first time last year.
Wow.
And like everybody says, you go one time and you want to go again. That is true.
Yeah.
My kids live on the mainland, on the West Coast, so I want to spend time with them. One of them's looking to have kids soon, so I think I'm ready for that grandpa experience. And so yeah, I mean that side of it, yeah, looking to travel, but also keep this kind of like a home base. I'm not looking to completely relocate. So yeah.
So advice to the younger HFT members preparing for retirement. So like deferred comp, what did you do to kind of set yourself up in the future?
So I didn't set myself up. So I'm one of those that's behind the curve.
Yeah.
So yes, advice to a lot of the new firefighters, and I try to share that with them. One of the advices that I was given as a young firefighter and I didn't listen to is, when we get our pay raises, put 1%, into deferred comp, and you never had it, so you'll never feel it, not or even half of what your pay raise would be, and before you know it, you're maxed out and you get a substantial amount. A lot of things is so on the bad side of that, and I'm going to mention this because I think it's important to know. So there was I'm not going to mention his name, had a firefighter, and he had a child that had a medical condition, and he needed to get funds, and he wanted to borrow against his deferred comp. Deferred comp won't allow you to do that. So pretty much your money's locked. The only time they allowed us to touch that was during the whole COVID thing, and that was a federal act. So you can still do an IRA on your own. You can do something like that where it's the same thing as doing a deferred comp. It's a little harder because you have to go and do the legwork. But yeah, definitely plan. I mean, if you do it slowly, you'll never feel it, and by the time you retire, you have a sizable amount and not have to worry about income. Especially with the new retirement programs. Yeah, it's going to be really tough. Yeah.
So what do you hope to leave behind as your legacy within the firefighting community?
I want to know that I was one of the hard asses out there. No, I'm just.
If you don't know who Captain Minami.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's pretty funny because I have that reputation, and I think that reputation came from having a standard.
Yeah.
And holding that standard.
Yeah.
And I don't think the standard was unreasonable. It's being proficient at our job. People are looking to us to be their solution, right, to their problem, their emergency. And showing up and being incompetent, to me, is embarrassing. We are professionals.
Yeah.
And so we should be professionals. We should present ourselves as professionals. It doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes or that we're going to have all the answers, but we should know how to address situations and know where to look for answers. So a lot of that, it's holding that standard. At the very least, I always said that I wanted to be viewed as competent.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the best, but be competent.
I like that standard. 10 years ago, when I was a recruit, the rumor was that Captain Minami, he was a driver, but you need to know your stuff. So if you got sent over here on the shift, you need to make sure you know what she's doing, at least for what we was able to do. Because he would get on you. If not, I was lucky not to shoot out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could send a message to the firefighting community and the public, what would it be? I guess we talked about it before, but I guess from your experience of what you've seen, accidents, personal views in the fire department, what would you say to the community? Like, I know Captain Pacheco was never ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, well, I ride motorcycles, so that's and have the scars to prove it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's one of those things that do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy. But understand that there's risks and there's consequences to a lot of your actions. If you're okay with that, then fine, be okay with it. But I hate when people do those risky things and then try to blame somebody else for the things that happen to them, the consequences of it, right? And that I have a very hard time with. If you want to go ulua fishing on the cliffs, hey, because that's the best fishing spots, great. But understand that you got to be able to watch surf. You got to know when you're there. The hazards of falling off. What happens if somebody does fall off? You know, riding a motorcycle. You know, things like that. Understand the risk of them. Try to prepare for it as best as you can, and then be okay with it. It's the same thing with our job, right? I guess we can go back to that. There's always risk. We're always reactionary. We don't plan for a fire.
Yeah.
Like, oh, today we're going to have a structure fire at 9 o'clock, so
At
get
this
ready.
building.
Right, you know what I mean? So it's all reactionary. So because we're reactionary, we're already behind the 8 ball when we start. So all our actions need to be premeditated as well as rehearsed, I guess you could say. That we have a plan, we have the ability and the skills to deal with it, and we react to whatever presents itself at that time. So, you know, again, it's like if you're not physically capable of doing the job or you haven't trained enough, I mean, really, whose responsibility is that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good answer. I guess it goes back to the community message. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give the public about something you wouldn't do now after being in the fire service for this amount of time?
Hey, like I
It's
said,
your choice.
Yeah, it's your choice, you know. Just be okay with the consequences of it.
That's a good answer. Okay, we're at open talk. Is there anything you want to talk about, or you know, like any advice you give, or anything that you think?
No, I think the only advice I would give, I guess, is for the upper level, I guess, more administrative, and the direction we're going is, from what I've seen, is we have to hold a standard. We have to maintain a level of professionalism, a level of training, a level of ability, and I don't think that level should be compromised. That's why I kind of appreciate what Chief Springer is doing, because I think he's holding that level of accountability. I had the pleasure of working side by side with him at Central when he was there, and he shared some of his thoughts, and I agree with him. Funny stories. Actually, he was my MICT when I got promoted to driver out in Ocean View, and yeah, he got firsthand to see what I did and, you know, required of the firefighters to know. And we've never had any conflict about it. You know, how we go about things are going to be different, like anything, right? Everybody has a different way of going about things, but I think that holding that standard is definitely something that needs to be done, because of how dynamic our job is, how dangerous it can be, and we cannot take things for granted. You know, we gotta hold that. You know, we gotta hold us a minimum. I know as we get older, we get slower, we get a little heavier. You know, not quite as in shape, but at the same time, I made sure that I can still perform and not lie to yourself and say, "Oh yeah, I'm top shape." It's like, I'm not. I know I'm not, but you know, I can do the job. You know, I still can perform when I need to. I can drag somebody out if I need to, and I think we all need to hold ourselves accountable for that. But as a department, they should be held accountable as well. So, yeah, I think, like I said, Chief Springer, I think he's in a good spot, and I think he has a very good plan. So, I think you guys are all in good hands.
Well, I think that concludes the last interview. We'd like to thank you for your time and service.
Thank you.
Right on.